it is permissible to connect an exhaust fan and lights in a bathroom to a ground fault circuit interrupter circuit. Ground fault circuit interrupters protect against electrical shock by interrupting power to the circuit if a ground fault is detected. This provides additional safety in areas where water is present, such as bathrooms. A receptacle can be installed next to the sink on a sidewall if it is within 36 inches of the edge of the sink, provided that it meets certain conditions. Firstly, the receptacle must be located at least 4 inches above the countertop or finished floor surface. Secondly, the receptacle must be installed in a box specifically designed for use in damp locations, meaning it should have a weatherproof cover and gasket. Thirdly, the receptacle must have a ground fault circuit interrupter for added protection. Ground fault circuit interrupters are crucial safety devices in bathrooms and other damp locations. They work by monitoring the current flowing into and out of a circuit. If there is an imbalance, even a very small one, it indicates that current is leaking somewhere, possibly through a person touching a live wire. The ground fault circuit interrupter quickly cuts off the power, preventing a potentially fatal shock. The National Electrical Code, or NEC, requires ground fault circuit interrupter protection for receptacles in bathrooms. This requirement extends to any receptacle within a certain distance of the sink, typically 6 feet. The reason for this is to protect people from electrical shock while using appliances near water. When installing a receptacle near a sink, the code specifies that it must be ground fault circuit interrupter protected. This can be achieved either by using a ground fault circuit interrupter receptacle or by protecting the entire circuit with the ground fault circuit interrupter circuit breaker. The ground fault circuit interrupter receptacle has test and reset buttons on its face, allowing you to verify that it is working correctly. The ground fault circuit interrupter circuit breaker provides protection for all the devices connected to that circuit. In addition to ground fault circuit interrupter protection, receptacles near sinks must also be installed in a weatherproof enclosure. This enclosure protects the receptacle from moisture and helps to prevent corrosion. The NEC also specifies the minimum height at which receptacles must be installed above the countertop. This height is typically 4 inches, but it may vary depending on local codes. The purpose of this requirement is to prevent water from splashing into the receptacle. When connecting an exhaust fan and lights to a ground fault circuit interrupter circuit, it is important to use appropriately rated wiring and connectors. The wiring must be sized to handle the load of the fan and lights, and the connectors must be suitable for use in a damp location. It is also important to follow the manufacturer's instructions for installing the fan and lights. This will help to ensure that they are installed safely and correctly. Before starting any electrical work, it is always important to turn off the power to the circuit at the breaker box. This will help to prevent electrical shock. It is also a good idea to use a voltage tester to verify that the power is off before touching any wires. If you are not comfortable working with electricity, it is best to hire a qualified electrician to do the work. A qualified electrician will be able to install the receptacle, fan, and lights safely and correctly. They will also be able to ensure that the installation complies with all applicable codes. When selecting a ground fault circuit interrupter receptacle or circuit breaker, it is important to choose one that is listed by a recognized testing laboratory such as Underwriters Laboratories or Intertech. This listing indicates that the device has been tested and meets safety standards. It is also important to choose a ground fault circuit interrupter that is rated for the voltage and current of the circuit. The voltage rating is typically 120 volts for residential circuits. The current rating is the maximum amount of current that the ground fault circuit interrupter can safely handle. It is important to note that ground fault circuit interrupters do not protect against overload or short circuits. Overload protection is provided by circuit breakers or fuses. Short circuit protection is provided by circuit breakers. When installing a receptacle near a sink, it is also important to consider the location of other electrical devices in the bathroom. For example, if there is an electric heater in the bathroom, it should be located at least 3 feet away from the sink. This will help to prevent water from splashing on the heater and causing a shock hazard. It is also important to keep electrical cords away from water. Never use an electrical appliance with wet hands or while standing in water. This can be extremely dangerous. If you have any questions about electrical safety, it is best to consult with a qualified electrician. They will be able to provide you with personalized advice based on your specific situation. Remember, electricity is a powerful force that can be dangerous if it is not handled properly. Always take precautions to protect yourself and your family from electrical shock. The ground fault circuit interrupter is a life-saving device that can help to prevent electrical shock in bathrooms and other damp locations. Make sure that you have ground fault circuit interrupter protection for all receptacles near sinks and other sources of water. Also make sure the ground fault circuit interrupter is functioning correctly. Test the ground fault circuit interrupter regularly to ensure that it is working properly. To test a ground fault circuit interrupter receptacle, simply press the test button. This should trip the ground fault circuit interrupter and cut off power to the receptacle. To reset the ground fault circuit interrupter, press the reset button. If the ground fault circuit interrupter does not trip when you press the test button, or if it trips frequently for no apparent reason, it may be defective and should be replaced. To test a ground fault circuit interrupter circuit breaker, you will need a ground fault circuit interrupter tester. This device plugs into a receptacle and simulates a ground fault. If the ground fault circuit interrupter circuit breaker trips when you press the test button on the tester, it is working properly. If the ground fault circuit interrupter circuit breaker does not trip, it may be defective and should be replaced. When replacing a ground fault circuit interrupter receptacle or circuit breaker, it is important to choose one that is compatible with your existing wiring. The voltage and current ratings must be the same, and the wiring connections must be compatible. If you are not sure which ground fault circuit interrupter to choose, it is best to consult with a qualified electrician. A qualified electrician can also install the ground fault circuit interrupter for you. This will ensure that it is installed safely and correctly. The NEC provides specific guidelines on the placement of receptacles in bathrooms to minimize the risk of electrical shock. These guidelines include distance requirements from sinks, bathtubs, and shower stalls. The general principle is to keep receptacles as far away as possible from water sources to reduce the likelihood of water coming into contact with the electrical components or appliances. The 36-inch rule you mentioned is a common guideline, but it's crucial to verify the exact requirements in the NEC edition adopted by your local jurisdiction, as codes can vary. When installing a receptacle within 36 inches of a sink, ensure it's not directly exposed to splashing water. Mounting it on a side wall, as you proposed, is a good practice as long as it meets the height requirement of at least 4 inches above the countertop or finished floor. This height helps prevent water from easily reaching the receptacle. Remember, the goal is to provide convenient access to power while maintaining a safe distance from water sources. Using a weatherproof cover and gasket for the receptacle box is an additional safety measure, particularly in damp locations like bathrooms. These covers are designed to prevent moisture from entering the electrical box and corroding the wiring or causing a short circuit. They are typically made of durable materials that can withstand exposure to water and humidity. Installing the receptacle in a box specifically designed for damp locations ensures that it can withstand the moisture levels commonly found in bathrooms. The box should be made of a non-corrosive material and have a tight-fitting cover to prevent water from entering. Using a ground fault circuit interrupter adds another layer of protection by quickly cutting off power in the event of a ground fault. This is especially important near water sources, where the risk of electrical shock is higher. The ground fault circuit interrupter constantly monitors the current flowing through the circuit and trips if it detects an imbalance, indicating that current is leaking to ground. When connecting the exhaust fan and lights to the ground fault circuit interrupter circuit, make sure to use wiring and connectors that are rated for the intended use. The wiring should be sized appropriately for the load of the fan and lights, and the connectors should be suitable for use in damp locations. It's also important to follow the manufacturer's instructions for installing the fan and lights to ensure that they are properly grounded and connected to the electrical system. Before starting any electrical work, always turn off the power to the circuit at the breaker box. This will prevent accidental electrical shock. Use a voltage tester to confirm that the power is off before touching any wires. If you are not comfortable working with electricity, it's best to hire a qualified electrician to do the work. An electrician has the knowledge and experience to safely and correctly install electrical components and ensure that the installation complies with all applicable codes. Always consult with your local building department or a qualified electrician to ensure that your electrical work meets all applicable codes and regulations. Electrical codes are designed to protect people from electrical shock and fire hazards, so it's important to follow them carefully. In summary, connecting bathroom fans and lights to a ground fault circuit interrupter circuit is generally permitted and provides an added layer of safety. Receptacles can be installed near sinks if they meet specific requirements for height, location, and protection. Always follow the NEC and local codes and consult with a qualified electrician if you have any questions. Remember to test ground fault circuit interrupters regularly to ensure they are functioning properly and providing the intended protection. If a ground fault circuit interrupter trips frequently or fails to trip during testing, it should be replaced immediately. Proper electrical safety practices are essential for protecting yourself and your family from electrical hazards in the bathroom and throughout your home.